The lock turned with a soft final click. Bass from the ballroom pulsed through the wall like a distant heartbeat. Vivian Hart stood between me and the door, close enough that her perfume cut through the sterile bathroom smell. Clean, expensive, wintergreen with something woody underneath. Her eyes were the color of lake water under cloud cover. I usually saw them across conference tables aimed at dashboards and deadlines. Here they held a different kind of focus, the kind you feel before a verdict. "This stays between us, Ethan," she said. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a muffled buzz against my thigh. I did not reach for it. I kept my hands on the sink edge instead, knuckles whitening against the cold stone. Vivian's fingers rested on the latch. A thin gold band circled her index finger. When she shifted, something tapped lightly against her wrist, a scuffed leather keychain out of place on someone who wore power like a tailored coat. I nodded once. That was all I trusted myself to do. She studied me, expression unreadable. "You are leaving," she said. "My daughter," I answered. The buzz came again. I felt it in my bones. Vivian's gaze flicked to my pocket, then back to my face. "Look at me." I did. The fluorescent light flattened everything, even her, but it could not flatten the way she held herself. She had walked into Lakefront Analytics 3 months ago, and the air had changed. Jokes died in hallways. Chairs scooted in when she passed. People found reasons to arrive early. Now she said quietly, "You are not fired." The words landed like a door opening where I expected a wall. My breath caught. My shoulders dropped before I could stop them. She lifted one hand, palm out, stopping whatever thanks tried to form. "We will be brief." My phone buzzed again. "You have a few minutes," Vivian said. After that, other people start telling themselves stories. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "So, we will be careful." Outside, laughter seeped under the hallway gap. The party kept rolling as if nothing in the building could change. The lock stayed turned. Vivian shifted half a step, not enough to let me pass, just enough to signal she had decided something. It felt like permission. My phone buzzed again. I blinked once hard, and the bathroom light changed into the pale wash of morning in my kitchen. The pan was already hot when I poured the batter. It hissed as it hit the metal, spreading into the dinosaur mold I had bought, because Lily had begged for it like it was magic. Bubbles rose and popped. The edges set. "Daddy, the tail is missing," Lily called from the table. "It is not missing," I said, flipping too early. The pancake tore in half. The tail stayed on the pan like it had made its own decision. Lily leaned over her coloring book and grinned. Marker stained her fingers. Her hair was a tangle I had fought with after her shower, braided loosely held by a pink elastic that never lasted a full day. "It is a T-Rex with no tail," she declared, delighted. "It is still scary." "You are still 8, I said, scraping the tail piece onto her plate. "That is why you think this is acceptable." She giggled, bright and sudden. It warmed the room in a way the radiator never managed. Outside the window, Chicago looked like wet steel. On the counter sat a second plate I had set out without thinking. Toast. A mug of coffee going cold. Beside it, an empty chair that did not match the rest. Lily's eyes flicked to that chair. Just a flick. She stabbed the tailpiece with her fork and pretended she had not looked. "Ms. Dawson said we are making family trees today," she said, and her voice went careful. "Like with branches." "That sounds fun," I said, watching the next pancake bubble. Lily colored a leaf green, hard enough to crinkle the paper. "Do I have to put Mom on it?" The batter hissed. My throat tightened. "You can put whatever you want," I said. "You can put Mrs. Ramirez. You can put Peanut." Peanut was her stuffed elephant missing one button eye. "You can put me twice if you want." Lily's mouth pulled to one side. "That is not how trees work." "Maybe your tree can," I said. She watched me for a beat too steady for a kid, then nodded as if filing the answer away. She went back to coloring. I flipped the pancake at the right moment this time. The dinosaur came out whole. I felt absurdly proud. My phone sat face down on the counter, silent for now. I did not turn it over. I knew what waited on the other side of silence, calls from school calendar alarms, the constant buzz that kept my thoughts from settling. "Can I have chocolate chips?" Lily asked. "On a school day, especially on a school day." I poured a small handful into the batter. The chips sank like dark coins. Lily's grin widened, and for a second her face looked younger, softer, like the 5-year-old who had stood in the doorway years ago, clutching a ring box because she thought it was a present. "Daddy," she said, quieter, "are you coming back after work?" My hand stilled over the pan. The question was simple. It carried everything. I turned the burner down and crossed to the table, crouching so my eyes were level with hers. There was a faint crescent on her cheek from the pillowcase. "I always come back," I said. Lily studied me like she was reading a sign that might change. "Promise." I held up my pinky. "Pinky promise." She hooked her finger around mine. Her grip was small and fierce. "Okay," she said like she had decided to believe me. The morning sprint followed. Shoes, backpack, a search for the missing homework folder. I found it under the couch cushion with a crayon and a quarter. Lily bounced on one foot while I tied the other shoe. Our apartment door stuck like it always did. I shouldered it open and felt the familiar scrape of paint against the frame. The hallway smelled like laundry detergent and someone's fried onions. Lily took my hand as we walked to the elevator. Her palm was warm. Mine was cold. At the building entrance, the wind slapped us both. Lily squealed and yanked her hood up. I laughed, surprised by the sound. We hurried to my car along the curb dusted with salt from yesterday's snow. As I buckled Lily into her seat, my phone buzzed for the first time that morning. I felt it like a flare. I did not look at it, not yet. I shut the car door, heard the latch catch, and stood there for a beat, with my breath fogging the air, one hand on the cold metal, listening to the city wake up. Across the street, a bus sighed at the curb doors, folding open. Lily hummed to herself behind the glass safe for now today. I slid into the driver's seat and shut my door against the wind. The heater coughed warm air that smelled faintly of dust. Lily sang softly in the back, some tune she'd made up, her words turning into hums when she forgot the rest. My phone buzzed again in the cup holder. The screen lit up. I kept my eyes on the road and drove on. Muscle memory past brick walk-ups and corner stores with metal gates half raised past a man scraping ice off his windshield like he was sanding wood. At the first long red light, I glanced down. A calendar alert. Department sync. 9:15. Mandatory. Below it, a reminder I had set myself in all caps, pick up Lily. My thumb hovered over the screen, then tapped it dark. The light turned green. I moved. Lily's school sat on a side street, lined with bare trees that rattled in the wind. The parking lot was already full of parents doing the morning drop like a practice drill. I pulled into a spot near the fence and climbed out, bracing against the cold. Lily popped her door open before I could reach her. She stepped down, backpack bouncing, and slipped her hand into mine like it belonged there. "I'm going to put Peanut on my family tree," she announced. "Peanut is family," I said. She nodded, satisfied. Then her gaze lifted, scanning the sidewalk, like she expected to see someone else standing with us. She did it quickly, almost casual. Her mouth stayed neutral. A teacher in a bright scarf waved from the doorway. "Morning, Lily." Lily lifted her chin. "Morning, Ms. Klein." We reached the steps. Kids streamed past us, cheeks red, voices sharp in the cold. Lily paused with one foot on the first step and turned back. "You're coming back after work," she said. It was not a question this time. It was a test. "I always come back," I said. Her eyes narrowed a little, like she was checking for cracks. Then she nodded once, brisk, and headed inside. Halfway through the doors, she looked over her shoulder and waved with two fingers like she was trying to be brave and cool at the same time. I stayed there a second too long, staring at the doors after they closed, letting the wind push against my jacket. Then my phone buzzed again, and the moment snapped. On the drive downtown, the skyline rose out of the gray like something built out of graphite. Lake Michigan was a sheet of dull metal to my right. Cars packed the lanes, brake lights blinking in waves. I moved with the flow, trying not to think about the meeting at 9:15, and the pickup later, trying not to do math in my head about traffic and time. Lakefront Analytics rented 3 floors in a glass building near the river. The lobby smelled like polished stone and coffee from the kiosk by the elevators. I swiped my badge at the turnstile and joined the morning crowd, all of us moving like we had places to be that mattered more than the weather outside. In the elevator, a guy from client services stood beside me, tie slightly crooked eyes on his phone. He nodded at me without smiling. "Hey," I said. "Morning," he answered. His voice was flat, not unfriendly, just tired. The elevator hummed upward. When the doors opened on our floor, the office looked like it always did at first glance. Rows of desks, screens glowing, a wall of glass conference rooms with names like Harbor and Bridge, the same smell of printer toner and burnt coffee. Then you notice the little things. Chairs tucked in straighter, voices lower, people not eating at their desks anymore, like crumbs had become a risk. The change had a name. Vivian Hart. I hung my coat, sat down, and woke up my laptop. The login screen flashed my reflection back at me. My hair was still damp from the shower. There was a faint crease on my forehead I did not remember having a few years ago. Slack messages stacked up while I typed my password. Marla from operations. "Did you hear Vivian is sitting in on the sink?" Kevin from finance, heads up. "She is tracking attendance down to the minute now." Someone in the general channel had posted a gif of a man walking on a tightrope. It had been deleted 30 seconds later. I stared at my calendar again. The sync was real. Mandatory was real. I could almost hear Vivian saying the word the way she said everything, like it was a fact, not a request. Across the aisle, Marla swiveled in her chair. She was always impeccably put together. Lipstick, perfect nails, short and neat. She had 2 teenagers and a husband who worked nights, and she still managed to look like she slept. "You look like you got hit by a bus," she said. "I feel like I got hit by a bus," I answered. She lowered her voice. "You coming to the 9:15? "Yes," I said too quickly. Marla's eyes flicked to my phone, then to my face. "Good. Do not give her a reason." I did not ask who her was. It hung in the air anyway. Vivian had started 3 months ago, brought in from a different division, with a reputation that traveled ahead of her. People said she turned chaos into profit. People also said she did it with a smile you never saw coming. 2 weeks after she arrived, 12 desks on our floor went empty. Some were layoffs. Some were role realignments, which meant people got moved to places where they quietly quit. No one talked about it above a whisper, but everyone had seen the list of names disappear from the directory like they had never existed. I told myself I was safe because my work was good, because my client feedback was strong, because I solved problems that other people did not want to touch. Then Lily got sick one Monday morning with a fever that made her skin too hot and her eyes glassy. I missed a big planning meeting and sent my notes late. A week later, her teacher called during a client presentation because Lily had bolted out of class during Family Roots Day, crying, "My mom is gone," and there I was in a conference room, pretending I could keep my voice steady while I asked the client to excuse me for one moment. My work was still good. My reliability was not. The sync meeting started in Harbor. The room was all glass walls and whiteboards with old marker smudges. I arrived early and chose a seat near the end where I could keep my shoulders against the wall and pretend I belonged there by choice. People filed in settling like they were placing themselves on a map. Marla sat 2 seats away. Kevin sat across tapping his pen against his notebook. No one spoke above a murmur. The door opened and Vivian walked in. She wore a dark blazer that looked like it had been designed to make her immune to small talk. Her hair was pulled back simple, precise. She carried a tablet and a thin folder. No coffee, no water bottle. Nothing that suggested she had human needs. She did not waste time greeting anyone. She set her tablet down, looked around the table, and nodded once. "Good," she said. "You are on time." It was the kind of sentence that sounded like a compliment, until you realized it was also a warning. She tapped her tablet and the screen on the wall lit up with a dashboard. Charts, percentages, red and green blocks arranged like a scoreboard. "Results," Vivian said. "Client satisfaction, throughput, resolution time." She moved through the categories with a calm voice that made each number feel personal. Then she stopped on a section titled Reliability. My stomach tightened. "This," she said, "is where we bleed." No one breathed. Vivian looked at the chart like it offended her. "You are talented. I can see that." Her eyes swept the room, pausing on faces like she was matching them to data points. But talent is not useful if it is not consistent. She tapped again and the chart broke into teams. I felt sweat prickle under my collar. The heater in the conference room was too high. My tie suddenly felt like a hand. Vivian's gaze landed on me for a beat longer than anyone else. Her eyes were not cruel. They were simply precise. "Ethan Brooks," she said. "Yes, I managed." "You lead the Sandstone account escalations," she said. "Correct." "Yes." "Your client feedback is excellent," she said. "Your issue resolution is faster than the team average." She did not smile. "And your attendance record is variable." The word hit like a pin. "I understand," I said, but my voice came out too thin. Vivian tilted her head slightly. "Do you?" There was a pause where I could have said something clean and professional. Something about process improvements. Something about being committed. Something that would not sound like a man begging. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I did not move. I did not look down. I kept my face still even as my heart started pounding like the buzz had reached inside my chest. Vivian's eyes narrowed a fraction. She had noticed, of course she had. She looked away first not out of kindness, but because she had decided the meeting did not need my personal life leaking into it. "We will revisit this," she said, and moved on to the next person. The rest of the meeting blurred. I heard words like accountability and benchmarks and operational discipline. I nodded in the right places. I wrote notes I did not remember writing. Every so often my phone buzzed again, and I told myself it was nothing, that Lily was fine, that the world did not always catch fire when my pocket vibrated. When the sync ended, people stood too fast, chairs scraping. Conversations broke into short bursts. Marla touched my elbow as we left. You okay? Yeah, I lied. She did not press. She just gave me a look that said she knew what it cost to keep showing up. Back at my desk, I opened the Sandstone report and forced my eyes to focus on numbers. My inbox kept filling. Requests, updates. A client asking for a call at 4:45. Another internal meeting at 5. A reminder from Lily's after-school program that pickup ended at 5:30. I stared at the times until they stopped looking like numbers and started looking like a trap. The office around me hummed with keyboards and low voices. Somewhere a printer spit out pages. Someone laughed once sharp and quickly cut off as if they had surprised themselves. My phone buzzed again. This time I pulled it out just enough to see the screen without lifting it too high. A message from Ms. Klein Lilly seemed anxious this morning. Just letting you know. I swallowed. My thumb hovered over the keyboard to respond, but my work screen flashed an incoming call request from Sandstone. I set the phone down face down and answered the client. My voice did what it was trained to do. Calm, helpful, professional. Inside my head, I kept seeing Lily on the steps, asking if I was coming back, and the empty chair in my kitchen that did not match the rest. When the call ended, I checked the time. The afternoon had started sliding away without permission. I opened my calendar again and felt that familiar squeeze in my chest as appointments stacked on top of the only one that mattered. Outside the window, the sky was already dimming, the city turning the color of cold water. I stared at my calendar until the numbers started to feel personal. 4:45, 5:30. I picked up the phone again just to look at Ms. Klein's message one more time. Lily seemed anxious this morning. Just letting you know. I typed back, thank you. I'll talk to her tonight. My thumb hesitated, then added, please let me know if anything changes. The reply bubble did not appear. Maybe she was teaching. Maybe she was busy. Maybe nothing had changed. My chest stayed tight anyway. A notification popped up on my screen. Sandstone requested a follow-up, priority high. I clicked into the file, forced my eyes to track line items, forced my brain to do what it had always done before Lily. Fix things. Smooth edges, make numbers behave, but every few minutes my gaze jumped to the bottom right corner where the clock sat like an accusation. At 4:38, the client call that was supposed to be 15 minutes turned into 30, then 40. I listened to a man talk about risk and timelines and deliverables, and I kept picturing Lily's small body on the school steps, one foot lifted, waiting for me to say the right thing. At 5:10, I tried to steer the call toward an ending. Just to recap, I said, voice steady, we can deliver the revised report by tomorrow morning. Does that cover what you need? There was a pause. Then the client said, one more thing. The words hit like a door slamming. I glanced at the glass wall of the conference room. Outside, the office lights reflected back at me, a grid of pale squares. People moved behind the glass blurred. No one looked like they were counting minutes the way I was. At 5:28, I ended the call with a final polite, we'll handle it. My chair scraped as I stood. I grabbed my coat and my bag moving fast, but trying not to look like I was running. At the elevator bank, Kevin from finance stepped up beside me, jacket already on. Leaving, he asked. Pick up, I said. He gave a tight nod. Good luck. The elevator took forever. When the doors finally opened, I slid inside and watched the numbers crawl down. My phone buzzed once. I pulled it out. After school program pickup window ends in 2 minutes. My stomach dropped. I started typing. On my way, stuck downtown, please hold her, but the elevator doors opened, and I broke into a jog across the lobby instead. The wind outside hit like a slap. I ran to the garage, feet skidding on salt grit. The car was cold inside the steering wheel, like ice. I started it, pulled out, and merged into traffic that did not care about my panic. I made it to the after-school center at 5:37. The woman at the desk looked up with a practiced expression that said she had delivered this message before. Mr. Brooks, she said, we really need you to be on time. I know, I said breathless. I'm sorry, I got held up. Behind her, Lily sat on a plastic chair with her backpack in her lap. Her shoulders were stiff. Her face was carefully blank like she had made it that way. When she saw me, her eyes flicked up and then away. I crouched in front of her. Hey, kiddo. She did not move at first. Then she stood slow and let me help her into her coat. In the car, she stared out the window. I came, I said. She pressed her lips together. You were late. I admitted. I'm sorry. She kept looking out. The city slid past streetlights, blinking on one by one. My phone buzzed again, and I almost threw it out the window. I did not check it. At home, Lily hung her coat on the hook and went straight to her room without saying anything. The apartment felt smaller when she did that. I made dinner that tasted like it had been cooked by someone thinking about 3 other things: pasta, sauce from a jar, a handful of shredded cheese. Lily ate quietly, twirling noodles with focus that felt too intense for a Tuesday. "How was family tree day?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She kept her eyes on her plate. "Fine." "Did you put peanut on it?" She nodded once. "Did you put Mrs. Ramirez?" Another nod. "And you put you." She paused. "Ms. Klein said I should put myself in the middle." "That sounds right," I said. Lily's fork slowed. Other kids had pictures, like their mom and dad together. I waited. If I rushed in with answers, she would retreat. I had learned that the hard way. She kept going, voice small. "I don't have a picture of mom anymore." My throat tightened. "I can print one," I said, then immediately regretted it. Lily's head snapped up. "Why?" The question was sharp, not rude, just raw. I swallowed. "If you wanted one." She stared at me for a beat. Then she looked back down. "I don't know." After dinner, I washed dishes while Lily did homework at the table. Pencil scratches, eraser crumbs. The quiet between us stretched and shifted. When it was time for bed, she climbed under the blanket and pulled Peanut to her chest. I sat on the edge of the mattress the way I always did and read 2 chapters of the book she'd picked from the library. A Girl and a Dog Solving Mysteries. Lily liked the parts where the dog always came back. Halfway through the 2nd chapter, her eyelids drooped. "Daddy," she murmured, words thick with sleep. "You're coming back tomorrow, too." "I always come back," I said, soft. She nodded like she had heard it in a dream, then rolled onto her side. I waited until her breathing deepened. I stood carefully and closed her door almost all the way, leaving the crack she liked, so a sliver of hallway light cut across her floor. In my own room, I opened my laptop and stared at my resume. The cursor blinked patient. I updated a line about project leadership. I added a bullet about client retention. The words looked clean and confident, like they belonged to someone who slept 8 hours and did not measure his life in pickup windows. I closed the laptop without saving. The next week was a string of small collisions. On Wednesday, Lily woke with a sore throat and watery eyes. She told me she felt fine, then coughed hard enough to bend forward. I checked her forehead with my palm. Too warm. "I'll take you to urgent care," I said. She nodded, already quieter than usual. At the clinic, the waiting room smelled like disinfectant and wet wool. A toddler cried in the corner. A television played muted news with captions scrolling. Lily leaned against my side, her head heavy on my shoulder. My phone buzzed. A meeting reminder. Quarterly planning, 9:30. I texted Marla with one hand, Lily's hair tickling my wrist. "Lily is sick. I'm at urgent care. I can join late or send notes." Marla replied fast. "Vivian will be there." My stomach clenched. The nurse called Lily's name. We went back. Swab. Tears in Lily's eyes. A sticker offered as consolation. The doctor said strep and handed me a prescription. Lily held my hand tight, like the clinic had reminded her that bodies could betray you. Back in the car, I called into the meeting on speaker. My voice was calm, my heart was not. "We're reviewing the resource allocation," someone said. I listened, trying to keep up, trying not to miss my turn. Lily coughed in the passenger seat, small and miserable. The sound cut through everything. There was a pause on the line. Vivian's voice came in clean and controlled. "Ethan." "Yes," I said. "Are you driving?" "I'm parked," I lied, gripping the steering wheel. "Good," Vivian said. "Your input on sandstone." I answered fast, precise. I gave the numbers. I gave the solution. For a minute, I felt like myself again, useful and competent. Then Lily whispered hoarse, "Daddy, can we go home?" My voice caught. "Yes, sweetheart." There was another pause. Vivian did not comment. She simply said, "Send your notes within the hour." "I will," I said. When I hung up, Lily looked at me. "Was that your scary boss?" I forced a smile. "She's not scary." Lily's eyes narrowed. "You don't sound like you believe that." I did not answer. I started the car and drove home through slushy streets, the wipers squeaking. At work the next day, I arrived 7 minutes late because the pharmacy line had wrapped around the aisle. I slipped into my chair and tried to disappear into my screen. Vivian walked past my desk an hour later. She did not stop. She did not look at me. She kept moving with that steady, deliberate pace. But my computer pinged. A calendar invite from Vivian Hart. 15 minutes. No agenda. My palms went damp. I stared at the invite until the words blurred. Marla appeared at my desk, holding a paper cup of coffee that smelled burnt. "Breathe," she said under her breath. "She's doing these with everyone." "With everyone who is late?" I asked. Marla's lips pressed together. "With everyone who is on her radar." I did not know if that was supposed to comfort me. When the time came, I walked to bridge the smaller glass room near the windows. Vivian was already inside, tablet on the table, hands folded. She did not offer me a seat. She waited until I sat anyway. Her eyes flicked down to her screen, then up. "Your work," she said, "is strong." I blinked. I had been bracing for impact. Compliments felt like bait. "Thank you," I said carefully. Vivian's gaze did not soften. "Your reliability is not." There it was. "I'm doing what I can," I said. "I do not doubt effort," Vivian replied. "I measure outcomes." I swallowed. My daughter is sick sometimes. School schedules shift. I stopped. I did not want to say it. The words felt like exposing Lily to a room that did not deserve her. Vivian watched me. Not impatient, not kind, just waiting. "I don't have backup," I finished. Vivian nodded once like she had logged the information. Understood. That was all. She tapped her tablet. "I expect improvement." Then she stood signaling the meeting was over. I left Bridge feeling like I had walked through a metal detector and been told the alarm would go off next time. That night, Lily's fever broke. She ate half a banana and asked for her favorite show. I sat beside her on the couch, with a blanket over both of us, her head tucked into my side. Outside the window, snow fell in thin, lazy flurries. Mrs. Ramirez knocked around 8, holding a container of soup like it was a peace offering. "Any better?" she asked us softly. "Better," I said. She looked past me at Lily, then back at my face. Her eyes were warm and sharp. "You look tired, mijo," she said. "I am," I admitted. Mrs. Ramirez set the soup on the counter. "You were doing 2 jobs. "Feels like 3, I said, trying to joke. She did not laugh. She touched my arm briefly, light as a tap. "Call me if you need." I nodded, grateful in a way that made my throat sting. The next morning, back at my desk, an email popped into my inbox with a bright banner and too many exclamation points. Lakefront Holiday Gala, attendance strongly encouraged. The location was a downtown hotel. The time was 8 p.m. The dress code was formal. At the bottom, in smaller text, there was a note about leadership visibility and team culture. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a quiet reminder of pickup times and bedtime routines. I stared at the invitation until the screen dimmed, then moved my mouse to wake it again. The bright banner returned, cheerful and insistent. Holiday Gala, leadership visibility, team culture. The kind of words that sounded harmless until they didn't. I clicked accept. The decision sat heavy in my chest the rest of the day. Every time I looked at the clock, I saw 2 clocks at once. One in the office counting toward the evening, one at home counting toward bedtime. On the afternoon before the gala, Lily's teacher sent a short note in her folder. "Lily participated today. Still a little quiet. Ethan, thank you for checking in." I read it twice, then slid the paper into my laptop bag like it was something fragile. At 5, I picked Lily up from her program on time. The staff member behind the desk gave me a look that was almost surprised. "See," I told Lily as we walked to the car, "I can do it." She climbed into her seat and buckled herself, hands fast and practiced. One time she said not unkind, just honest. At home, she dropped her backpack by the couch and went straight to the kitchen. She opened the cabinet where I kept the pancake mold, as if checking it was still real. "Is it Wednesday?" she asked. "It is not," I said. She shut the cabinet softly. "Okay." I warmed leftovers for dinner while she colored at the table. Peanut sat beside her, propped against a pencil cup, like he was supervising. Lily hummed under her breath. It was a tune that sounded like comfort. Halfway through dinner, she looked up, sauce on her lip. "Mrs. Ramirez is coming tonight." "Tomorrow night," I said. "She's gonna hang out with you while I go to a work thing." Lily's fork paused. "A party. It's more like a lot of grown-ups standing around pretending they are having fun," I said, then softened it when her eyes narrowed. "Yes, a party." Lily chewed slowly. "Will you be back before I fall asleep?" The question was simple, but my stomach tightened. "I will be back," I said. I chose the words carefully. "You'll be asleep, but I'll be back." She looked down at her plate. "You said that before." I stopped eating, I know. Her fingers traced the edge of her napkin, small, deliberate movements. "I don't like when people go away at night." "I don't like it either," I said. Lily's gaze flicked toward the empty chair, not lingering, just acknowledging it like a bruise. Then she forced her eyes back to me. "Can I sleep in your bed?" she asked, voice casual, like she was asking about dessert. "Not tomorrow," I said gently, "but you can put Peanut in the nightlight on extra bright, and you can call me if you wake up." Her head tilted. "Will you answer?" I felt that sting behind my eyes, the one that always came when she asked for proof. "I will answer," I said. "If I can't pick up right away, I will call you back. I promise." She watched me for a long beat. Then she nodded once, like she was filing another promise into the same cabinet as the pancake mold. The next night, I left work a little early and drove home through rush hour traffic that crawled like it was tired too. Snow had melted into gray piles along the curb. The wind off the lake cut through my jacket as I carried my bag inside. Mrs. Ramirez was already in the hallway when I stepped out of the elevator. She stood with her coat still on, scarf wrapped around her neck, a tote bag at her side. She looked like she had come prepared for anything. "You ready?" she asked. "As ready as I can be," I said. She stepped into the apartment and immediately lowered her voice, like the walls might disturb Lily. "Where is she?" "In her room," I whispered. Mrs. Ramirez nodded and moved down the short hall. I followed, feeling like I was escorting someone into a sacred space. Lily's door was open a crack. I pushed it wider with 2 fingers. Lily sat on her bed in pajamas, hair brushed, peanut tucked under one arm. Her eyes were bright in the glow of the nightlight, not sleepy at all. Mrs. Ramirez smiled. "Hello, mi vida." Lily's shoulders loosened a little at the sound. "Hi," she said. Mrs. Ramirez set her tote bag down and pulled out a small container. I brought popcorn, the kind with the real butter smell. Lily's face softened, just a notch. "Can we watch the dog show?" "If your father says yes," Mrs. Ramirez replied, glancing at me. I nodded. "Dog show is fine, no scary movies." Lily rolled her eyes, but it was the kid version of a truce. Fine. I went back to my room to change. My suit hung in the closet like a costume I never got comfortable wearing. I pulled it on, buttoned the jacket, and felt the fabric pinch at my middle. I stared at myself in the mirror and tried to smooth down the crease between my brows with my thumb. In the living room, Lily sat on the couch with Mrs. Ramirez. The dog show played on low volume. A golden retriever trotted across the screen as if it had a secret. Lily looked up when I came out in my suit. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "You look like a lawyer," she said. "I am not a lawyer," I said. She pointed at my tie. "Too tight." I loosened it slightly. "Better." She studied me like she was checking for cracks again. "Are you going to be nice at your party?" I snorted softly. "I'm going to be polite." "That is not the same thing," she said, and Mrs. Ramirez made a quiet sound that might have been a laugh. I crouched in front of Lily. "I'm going to go, and then I'm going to come back. Just like always." Lily's mouth pressed into a line. "I want a real promise." I held up my pinky. She hesitated, then hooked her finger with mine. Her grip was firm. "Okay," she said, like she had decided to let me leave. I kissed the top of her head. Her hair smelled like shampoo and something sweet. I stood, picked up my coat, and looked at Mrs. Ramirez. "My number is on the fridge," I said. She waved a hand. "I know. Go. You need to show your face." I did not miss the way she said it, like she understood the weight of faces and rooms and people who counted. I grabbed my keys and stepped into the hallway. The apartment door stuck like it always did. I pulled it shut until the latch caught. The sound was small but final. In the car, the city looked dressed up and tired at the same time. Storefronts glowed warm. People hurried along sidewalks with their shoulders hunched against the cold. I drove downtown following the flow of taillights, feeling the knot in my chest tighten every time my phone shifted in my pocket. The hotel was one of those places that tried to feel like a private club. Dark wood, low lighting, a smell of citrus and polished leather. A doorman nodded at me as if he recognized my face, which he did not. Inside the lobby, chandeliers threw soft light onto marble floors. Women in dresses and men in suits drifted toward the ballroom, their laughter echoing up into the high ceiling. I followed the signs for the gala, my shoes sounding too loud on the stone. At the entrance, someone from HR stood behind a small table with name tags. She handed mine to me with a bright smile. "Ethan," she said, like we were old friends. "Glad you made it." I pinned the tag to my lapel and forced my mouth into something that looked like a smile. Wouldn't miss it. The ballroom doors opened and sound spilled out. Music, voices, clinking glasses. Warm air wrapped around me, carrying the smell of food that looked pretty and would not fill anyone up. The room was full of people I knew from email threads and conference calls. Tonight they were holding drinks instead of laptops. Some of them looked looser, louder. Some looked like they were still at work, just with dimmer lighting. A long table near the back held trays of appetizers arranged like art, tiny skewers, small circles of bread topped with salmon, a bowl of olives that glistened under the lights. I took one of the skewers and ate it in 2 bites, then realized I was still hungry. "Ethan," a voice called. Marla approached wearing a red dress that made her look like she belonged in a different life. She held a drink in one hand and a small plate in the other. "You came," she said, and there was real relief in her eyes. "I told you," I said. Marla leaned in slightly. "Vivian is here." My stomach tightened. "Of course she is." "She arrived early," Marla said. "She has been working the room like it's another meeting." I nodded, eyes scanning without meaning to. I saw Vivian near the center speaking to 2 senior managers. Her posture was perfect. Her expression was composed. She held a glass, but I did not see her drink from it. Even at a party, She looked like a person who belonged to the building. Marla watched my face. "Just be normal," she said. "Smile, say hello, do not bolt." "I'm great at not bolting," I said, and we both knew it was not true. Marla touched my arm. "How is Lily?" The question landed softly, and my chest loosened for a second. "Better," I said. "Still, you know." Marla nodded, understanding more than she said. "Mrs. Ramirez is with her tonight." "Yeah," I said. "She's good. Lily likes her." "Good," Marla replied, and her eyes flicked to my pocket as if she could hear my phone. I checked it without pulling it out, a familiar phantom sensation. No buzz, no sound, just the weight of it. Marla lifted her drink. "Go circulate. I have to talk to Kevin before he starts explaining tax codes to someone who didn't ask." She left me with a quick squeeze to the shoulder, and I stepped deeper into the room. I shook hands. I nodded. I laughed at things that weren't funny. Someone from sales told a story about a client who tried to pay an invoice with gift cards. A developer complained about the music being too loud for networking. I responded with the right sounds while my eyes kept drifting to the exits, the doors, the little signs that marked hallways. My phone stayed quiet. That was somehow worse. I found a spot near the edge of the crowd where I could see the room without being in the middle of it. I picked up a second appetizer, something crunchy and warm, and ate it while watching people move. Laughter rose and fell in waves. The band shifted to a slower song. Someone clapped off beat. Across the room, Vivian turned slightly, and her gaze swept past me, not landing, not acknowledging. It was the kind of glance that could mean nothing or everything. I reached into my pocket and touched my phone through the fabric, just enough to reassure myself it was there. It was warm from my body heat. It felt like a heartbeat that did not belong to me. I took a breath and told myself to look like someone who belonged at a party. I straightened my tie and stepped forward to join another conversation, my smile already in place. A man from accounting was talking about refund timing like it was a thrilling plot twist. Two people nodded politely, their eyes sliding past him to the bar. I nodded too, letting my attention float just above the surface, catching phrases without holding them. The ballroom air felt heavy with perfume and warm fabric. Underneath it all was the smell of food that looked generous and left you still hungry. "Ethan, right?" the accounting guy said, turning toward me with a hopeful expression. "Yeah," I said. "Ethan." "I'm Cal," he said, shaking my hand. His palm was damp. "You're on Sandstone." "Most days," I said. Cal launched into a story about a client who tried to submit receipts written on a napkin. I gave the right sounds at the right times. My eyes kept drifting toward the doors, toward the hallway, signs, toward the small gap where the ballroom noise thinned into something quieter. My phone stayed still in my pocket. It felt like an object with its own gravity. A laugh rose nearby, bright and sharp. Someone had taken off their blazer and loosened their tie. A woman from marketing danced in place for half a second when the band played the opening of a song she liked, then caught herself and smiled like it had been accidental. I tried to let my shoulders loosen. I tried to breathe like a person at a party. Cal leaned closer. "So, how's it going with Vivian?" There it was. The question people asked while pretending they were talking about weather. I kept my face neutral, busy, focused. Cal's eyebrows lifted. "That's one way to put it." I let out a small laugh that did not reach my chest. "She has high standards." Cal's mouth twisted. "She has a list." "What list?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer would make my stomach tighten. Cal lowered his voice. "People she thinks are dragging the department down." My throat went dry. "That's everybody," I said. Cal shrugged. "Maybe, but some names are closer to the top." I felt the urge to check my phone just to have something to do with my hands. I resisted. I held my glass of water instead and took a sip that tasted like nothing. Cal kept talking. "I saw her last week pull up some dashboard on her tablet. She stared at it like it was personally insulting." I pictured Vivian in the conference room, eyes steady, voice calm, saying reliability like it was a diagnosis. "Yeah," I said, "that sounds like her." Across the room, the band shifted into a louder song. People clapped, some of them off beat. The lights over the dance floor brightened slightly, turning faces softer, blurrier at the edges. For a moment, the room almost looked like it wanted to be joyful. Then my phone buzzed. The vibration was small, but it cut through everything. It pressed against my thigh like a warning. My body reacted before my mind did. My shoulders tightened. My pulse jumped. I felt heat rise behind my ears. I slid my hand into my pocket and pulled the phone out low, keeping it close to my body, angled away from Cal. A text from Mrs. Ramirez. "Lily woke up crying. Bad dream. She wants you." The words did not blur. They sharpened. The noise of the ballroom faded into a dull roar behind them. I typed back with my thumb fast and clumsy. I'm leaving now. Hold her for me. Tell her I'm coming. The message sent. No reply yet. Cal was still talking, but his mouth was moving in slow motion now. I forced my eyes up. Sorry, I said, voice steady, even though my ribs felt too tight. Family thing. Cal's face shifted into something sympathetic. Yeah, go. I nodded once too quick and stepped away. My heart was beating hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. I moved through the crowd, keeping my head down, weaving between groups of people, holding drinks and laughing. The room seemed suddenly crowded, like someone had tightened the walls. The air felt thick. My suit jacket scratched at my neck. As I walked, I kept seeing Lily's face in my mind, eyes wide in the nightlight glow, asking if I would come back. Promise her pinky, hooked around mine like an anchor. My phone buzzed again. I did not need to look to know it was her, or the nightmare, or Mrs. Ramirez saying she was upset. My hand shook slightly as I pulled the phone out. Mrs. Ramirez again. She is asking if you are gone. She thinks you disappeared. The words hit like a punch. My stomach rolled. I typed back. Tell her I am on my way. Tell her I always come back. I shoved the phone into my pocket and moved faster, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the ballroom doors. A waiter stepped into my path with a tray of champagne flutes. I dodged around him, murmuring an apology that came out ragged. Someone brushed my sleeve and said my name like it was a greeting. I kept going. The exit was 10 feet away. I was close enough to see the darker hallway beyond the doors, the place where the music thinned out and you could hear your own thoughts. Then a voice said calmly, Ethan. I stopped like I had hit a wall. Vivian Hart stood near the edge of the crowd, half turned toward me. She held her glass the way she held everything, as if it was part of her job. She was not smiling. Her expression was composed, but her eyes were sharp, fully present. For a second, I could not tell if she had been watching me the whole time, or if she had simply noticed the shift in the room, the way some people notice temperature changes. I forced my face into something polite. Ms. Hart. Her gaze flicked to my pocket, not overtly, just enough to let me know she had clocked it. You are leaving, she said. It was the same sentence she had said in my head 1,000 times. In my imagination, it always came with consequences. Yes, I said. I tried to keep my voice neutral. Family situation. Vivian's eyes held mine. The music was loud around us, but there was a stillness in the space between her and me that made it feel like the room had stepped back. How urgent, she asked. The question surprised me. It was not friendly, but it was not a trap either. It sounded like a person collecting facts. Now, I said. My daughter woke up. She's scared. Vivian's jaw tightened slightly, then relaxed. Her gaze shifted past me, taking in the doors, the hallway, the flow of people. She looked like she was calculating the shortest route. Who is with her? She asked. The question was too personal to belong in this room. It made my skin prickle. Mrs. Ramirez, I said, my neighbor. Vivian nodded once. Behind her, someone called her name. Vivian did not turn. Come with me, she said. My mouth went dry. Right now, Vivian's eyes did not blink. Yes. I glanced toward the exit again. The doors were right there. I could push through, get out, drive home, hold Lily, and this could be just another night where I apologized to my boss later. I could send an email. I could accept whatever damage came with it. But Vivian was standing there like a closed gate. Her presence made the air feel different. People moved around us, but no one stepped into our circle. It was as if everyone had learned to give her a certain radius. I need to go, I said, trying again as if she had not understood. Vivian's voice dropped just a fraction enough that I had to lean in to hear her over the band. I know. The two words landed heavier than I expected. I felt my breath catch. My hands were cold. My phone pressed against my thigh like it was still buzzing even when it wasn't. Vivian's gaze flicked to my lapel, the name tag that said Ethan. The ink looked too bright, too cheerful, pinned to a suit that did not fit my life. I am not stopping you, she said. I am asking for 2 minutes. I stared at her, trying to read her face. She gave me nothing. She did not soften. She did not harden. She simply waited like she was used to people deciding under pressure. A pulse of guilt ran through me, sharp and familiar. Lily crying, Mrs. Ramirez trying to comfort her, Lily imagining me gone the way her mother had gone. The thought tightened my throat until it hurt. My phone buzzed again. I did not pull it out this time. I could not stand to see more words that made me feel like I was failing. Vivian watched my pocket. Her eyes lifted back to mine. Ethan, she said, and my name sounded different in her mouth, less like a data point and more like a person. Look at me. I did. Her eyes were steady. There was no panic in them, No drama, just focus. I will make sure you leave, she said, but you will listen first. Something in my chest shifted, not relief, not fear, something in between. Suspicion and hope do not mix well, but they were both there. I swallowed. Okay, I said, and my voice came out rough. Vivian turned without another word and started walking. I followed. We moved through the crowd, cutting along the edge of the ballroom, where the lights were dimmer. People looked up as Vivian passed. Conversations dipped. Someone stepped aside without thinking. Vivian did not acknowledge any of it. She walked with the same measured pace she used in the office hallways. My heart kept racing, and now it had a new rhythm to chase her footsteps. We passed the bar. A bartender poured champagne into glasses like he was filling test tubes. The smell of citrus and alcohol mixed with perfume and warm fabric. My mouth tasted like metal. As we reached the ballroom doors, I heard someone laugh too loudly, the kind of laugh that means they are trying to prove they belong. I wondered if I ever sounded like that at these events. Probably. The hallway outside was cooler. The music dropped muffled behind the doors. The hotel lights here were brighter, less flattering, more honest. A carpet with a geometric pattern stretched toward restrooms and service corridors. Vivian did not slow down. She moved toward the signs for the restrooms. My stomach dropped. The last thing I needed was a private conversation with Vivian Hart in a hallway where people could walk by. The last thing I needed was anything that looked like secrecy. Ms. Hart, I said, keeping my voice low. Can we do this tomorrow? Vivian did not turn her head, no. I followed my shoes quiet on the carpet. The farther we got from the ballroom, the more I could hear my own breathing. The buzz of my phone felt imaginary now, a ghost sensation that still made my skin crawl. At the restroom corridor, a couple walked past us, arms linked, laughing softly. Vivian's posture did not change. She waited until they were gone, then continued. My throat tightened. My daughter, I said again. Vivian stopped. She turned fully to face me. In the bright hallway light, I could see small details I never noticed in the office. A faint line at the corner of her mouth, like she held her expressions back by force. A tiny scuff on the toe of her shoe. The same scuffed leather keychain looped around her wrist, worn and out of place. Her gaze stayed on my face, not my pocket. I heard you, she said. 2 minutes. I nodded once, because my body did not know what else to do. Vivian turned and walked to the women's restroom door. She reached for the handle. Then she looked at me, eyes steady, voice low enough that the hotel air itself seemed to lean closer. Follow me, she said. Vivian pushed the women's restroom door open as if it were another conference room. She glanced inside first. The space was empty, bright under fluorescent lights, too clean to feel real. Beige tile, a row of sinks with chrome faucets, a long mirror that made everything look flatter and more exposed. She stepped in and held the door for me without ceremony. I hesitated on the threshold, a stupid reflex, a fear of being seen walking into the wrong place, of rumors forming faster than facts. The hotel hallway behind us felt suddenly loud even without the music. Vivian's eyes met mine, not impatient, not gentle, decisive. I went in. The door shut, and the ballroom sound dropped into a muffled thrum again. Vivian reached back and turned the lock. The click was soft, final. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I did not pull it out. The urge to run surged through me anyway, hot and immediate, like my body wanted to outrun the feeling of Lily crying into Mrs. Ramirez's shoulder. Vivian stayed close to the door for a beat, listening, as if checking that no one would knock, no one would come looking. Then she walked to the sink, set her glass on the counter, and faced me. 2 minutes, she said. My voice came out tight. Ms. Hart, my daughter is scared. I know, Vivian replied. The way she said it made it sound like a fact she had already filed, not something she doubted, not something she wanted explained. She lifted her tablet, tapped once, then looked up. Ethan Brooks, Sandstone Escalations, 8 months on the account, strong technical outcomes. I swallowed. My throat felt dry enough to crack. Vivian continued, eyes shifting briefly to her screen and back. Client satisfaction ratings are among the highest in your group. Your resolution time is excellent. Your written communication is clear. I did not trust it. Compliments from Vivian felt like the calm before a cut. She paused just long enough for my chest to tighten. Your attendance, she said, is not. There it was again. The same word from the meeting. The same shape of pressure. I'm doing everything I can, I said. Vivian's gaze held mine. That is not the question. I blinked, confused. The question, she said, voice steady, is whether your current pattern is sustainable. My phone vibrated again. The buzz pressed into my thigh like a reminder with teeth. I forced myself to stay still. No, I said quietly, it's not. Vivian nodded once as if I had finally said something accurate. You understand the problem. I understand it, I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. I cleared my throat and tried again. I don't have anyone else. It's me. It's been me. Vivian's expression did not change. She absorbed the sentence like she absorbed numbers. She scrolled on her tablet. Your late arrivals and absences cluster around specific dates. I stared at her. What does that mean? It means Vivian said they align with school holidays, early dismissal days, and typical pediatric sick patterns. The clinical precision made my stomach twist. It sounded like she was talking about weather, not my life. I felt heat rise in my face. You tracked my daughter. I tracked data, Vivian corrected. It is my job. I held her gaze, trying to keep the anger from turning into something sloppy. My daughter is 8. Her mother is not involved. Vivian did not flinch. I know. The words landed hard. Not because they were unexpected, but because they were said without any softness. How I asked, and it came out sharper than I meant. Vivian set the tablet down on the counter. Her fingers spread lightly on the edge, palms flat. Human Resources maintains records, emergency contacts, benefit forms, dependents. You listed one child, no second parent. My chest tightened. I hated hearing it reduced to forms and boxes, but the truth was the truth. Lily existed in a system that did not care about her nightmares, only her status. I looked away toward the mirror and saw myself. Suit, name tag, eyes a little too wide. I looked like a man trying not to drown in a shallow pool. Vivian's voice stayed even. Your manager noted schedule conflicts. Several instances. The pattern is consistent. I turned back to her. So, what you're here to tell me I'm a problem employee? Vivian held my gaze without blinking. I am here to decide what to do with a high-performing employee whose metrics are unstable. My phone buzzed again. I felt my teeth clench. My kid is not a metric. Vivian's eyes flicked just once to my pocket, then back to my face. No, she said, and there was a slight shift in her tone. Not warmth exactly. A change in pressure. She is not. The bathroom felt too bright. The air smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and someone's expensive hand lotion. Somewhere in the wall, a fan hummed steady and indifferent. Vivian picked up her tablet again. Her hand moved with the same controlled economy I had seen in meetings. Tap, scroll, pause. I reviewed your file extensively, she said, because I do not like surprises. My mouth went dry again. I didn't mean to become one. Vivian looked up. I believe you. That surprised me more than anything. Not the words themselves, but the fact she said them without sarcasm. I took a breath and tried to keep my voice from shaking. If this is about tonight, I can make up hours. I can come in early. I can stay late. Vivian's expression tightened slightly, then released. You already do. I blinked. She pointed at the screen, not showing it to me, just indicating its existence. Your completed work volume is high. Your timestamps show after hours activity, weekends, early mornings. A small bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. That's the only time the world is quiet. Vivian watched me carefully. The corner of her mouth twitched not into a smile, but into something that suggested she understood the sentence in a way that was not professional. You are compensating, she said. You are patching holes. I thought of Lily asleep with Peanut under her arm. I thought of my laptop glowing on the kitchen table at midnight. I thought of my own body always tired, always braced. Yes, I said, I am. Vivian set the tablet down again. She rested her hand beside her glass. The scuffed leather keychain tapped softly against her wrist. A small sound that suddenly mattered because it was the only sound she made that was not controlled. You were correct earlier, she said. I frowned. About what? About this staying between us, Vivian replied. I stared at her. Why? For the first time since she stopped me in the ballroom, Vivian looked away. Not from discomfort, from calculation. As if choosing a line she did not often cross. Then she looked back. Because my role requires distance, she said, and because personal history can be used as leverage. The words were blunt, honest in a way I had not expected. My phone buzzed again. I wanted to pull it out so badly my fingers tingled. I did not. Vivian's voice lowered. I was raised by a single father. The sentence hung in the air, strange and heavy, like a dropped object you did not expect to make noise. I stared at her. Vivian Hart, who walked through the office like she owned the floor under her shoes. Vivian Hart, who spoke in numbers and outcomes. Vivian Hart, who had turned 12 names into empty desks without blinking. My mother died when I was young, she continued. She said it the way she might say a quarterly figure, flat, controlled. But her eyes changed slightly, darkening, focusing inward for half a second. I swallowed. I'm sorry. Vivian lifted one hand, a small stop. Do not. I froze. It was a long time ago, she said, and sympathy makes people sloppy. The line sounded like something she had learned the hard way. My chest tightened anyway. Okay. Vivian looked at me with that steady, lake-colored gaze. He worked constantly. He was always exhausted, always choosing food or time, rent or rest, presence or provision. Each phrase came out measured, almost clipped, but the accumulation of them hit like a series of quiet knocks. I did not know what to do with the image. I pictured a man I had never met, shoulders bent, hands rough, watching a clock like it was a threat. I pictured a little girl waiting at a window, telling herself she was fine. Vivian's fingers brushed the scuffed leather keychain again, absent-minded. He kept me alive, she said. He did not always feel like he was living. My throat burned. That sounds familiar? Vivian's eyes flicked to mine. There it was. A small acknowledgement. Not comfort, not friendship. Recognition. So, I said, and my voice sounded strange in the bright bathroom. This is why you're doing this in here. Vivian exhaled through her nose, a controlled release. This is why I reviewed your file personally. My phone buzzed again. I felt my body jolt with it. Vivian noticed. Her gaze stayed calm. You are worried she will believe you are gone, she said. I stared at her, startled. She continued, voice quiet but firm. Not just tonight, in general. I swallowed hard. Yes. Vivian's expression did not soften, but something in her eyes sharpened, as if she had found the true problem under the surface one. I am not firing you, she said. The words took a second to register, like my brain had to reread them. I blinked once, then again. Relief hit so fast my knees went weak. I reached back without thinking and put my hand on the counter edge. The stone was cold and solid. My lungs pulled in air like they had been underwater. Vivian watched me, her face unreadable, but she did not interrupt the moment. She let it exist small and private in a locked room that smelled like cleaner and wintergreen perfume. My phone buzzed again, persistent. I closed my eyes for half a second, pressed my palm harder to the counter, and tried to steady the shaking that had started in my hands. I opened my eyes and stared at the faucet as if it could give me instructions. My phone vibrated again, stubborn warm against my thigh. The stone beneath my palm felt steady in a way I wasn't. Vivian watched me without moving. Her face stayed composed, but she did not look away. She let me take the breath like she had granted it. Thank you, I said, and the words came out rough, scraped raw by panic. Vivian lifted her hand. 2 fingers, small stop. Do not thank me yet. My stomach tightened again. Relief was never allowed to settle. Not in my life, not in hers. I'm not finished, she added, calm as ever. I swallowed. Okay? She picked up her tablet, tapped once, then slid it into a slim portfolio tucked under her arm. That movement did something to the room. It shifted the moment from analysis to decision. Vivian reached into the inside pocket of her blazer and pulled out a card case. Black leather. No logo, no shine. It looked worn at the corners, like it lived in her hand. She opened it and drew one card out with precise fingers, then held it toward me. I took it like it might vanish if I moved too fast. Lakefront Analytics was printed at the top in sharp letters. Below it, FlexOps Pilot, Remote Operations. The card was thick, matte, expensive in the quiet way Vivian was expensive. It smelled faintly of paper and her perfume. I looked up at her. What is this? A program, Vivian said. We launch it next quarter. My brain tripped on the words. Next quarter, program, launch, all the clean corporate language that usually meant more work for the same pay. Vivian continued, voice steady. 3 days from home, 2 days on-site for essential meetings, flexible hours within a core window. The work must be done. The client must be covered. I stared at the card as if it might start explaining itself. You want me to apply? I said. Vivian's eyes held mine. No. The single syllable landed like a door shutting on one path and opening another. I want you to lead it. For a second I thought I had misheard her. The bathroom fan hummed. Somewhere in the building the band hit a chorus and the muffled rhythm rose through the wall. My phone vibrated again, urgent, and I did not move. Lead it, I repeated. Vivian's expression stayed controlled. Yes. My throat worked around the air that suddenly felt too thin. Ms. Hart, I can barely keep my current job together. You keep the work together, Vivian corrected. Your life is what is colliding with it. The way she said it made it sound like physics, not failure. I looked down at the card again. Remote operations. My mind flashed through ordinary moments like snapshots. Lily stepping off the bus, the after-school desk clerk watching the clock, a pot of pasta boiling over while I stared at a laptop, the empty chair. You want me to do this because I'm a mess, I said before I could stop myself. Vivian's gaze sharpened. Do not insult yourself in front of me. I blinked. She stepped closer, stopping on the other side of the sinks. Close enough that I could see the faintest shadow of tiredness under her eyes, as if sleep was something she negotiated for like a contract. You are not a mess, Vivian said. You are a person managing 2 full-time obligations without support. My chest tightened in a new way. Not panic this time. Something like being seen. I tried to steady my voice. Why me? Why not someone else? Someone easier? Vivian's mouth pressed into a line. When she spoke, her voice dropped slightly, just enough that it felt private even in a locked room. Because you understand what remote work actually requires, she said. Not slogans, not buzzwords. It requires boundaries that are respected and systems that do not punish people for having lives. She paused, eyes flicking down to my pocket for a fraction of a second, then back to my face. And because she added talent is worth accommodating. The sentence was simple, but it held weight. It did not sound like pity. It sounded like a decision she could defend. I stared at her. You're saying you can accommodate me. Vivian's expression did not soften, but the corner of her mouth moved as if she had considered a smile and rejected it. I am saying I will build a structure that keeps people like you from breaking, she said, and I need someone to run it who has already been close to the edge. My fingers tightened around the card. It bent slightly, then I forced myself to loosen my grip. My phone vibrated again, insistent. I could almost picture Mrs. Ramirez in my apartment popcorn, untouched Lily upright in bed with wide eyes asking the question that hurt the most. Are you gone? I reached for my phone, then stopped. I could not handle more words right now. Not while Vivian's offer sat in the air unreal. Talk to me, I said, and the desperation leaked through despite my effort to keep it professional. What does leading it mean? What are you actually asking me to do? Vivian nodded once, as if she respected the question. You will build the protocols, she said. Communication, coverage, escalation pathways. You will set expectations that make sense. You will pilot it with a small group. You will report outcomes. I heard the shape of it. The work I already did expanded, the kind of work I was good at, solving problems people avoided, making things run. And you think I can do that from my apartment? I said, my voice quieter now. I think you will do it better, Vivian replied, because you will not be watching the clock like it is a weapon. My throat tightened. The image was too accurate. I looked at her wrist. The scuffed leather keychain rested against her skin. It did not belong with her blazer or her clean lines. It looked like something kept for a reason. You said your father, I began, then stopped. The sentence felt like a boundary I was not allowed to cross. Vivian's eyes did not flicker. Yes, I forced myself to finish. Did anyone help him? Vivian's hand moved not to her tablet, but to the keychain. Her thumb rubbed the worn leather, once a small, unconscious motion. No, she said, not in the way that mattered. The bathroom light made her skin look paler, but it could not hide the steadiness in her. She had survived something and built armor out of it. She had learned how to keep her voice level, even when the subject turned sharp. My phone vibrated again. This time Vivian spoke before I could. You need to go, she said. It was not a question. It was an instruction, and for once it aligned perfectly with my own need. I nodded quickly. Yes. Vivian's gaze held mine. We will discuss details after the holidays. I gripped the card. So, this is real. It is real, Vivian said. Human resources will prepare paperwork. There will be a modest salary adjustment to reflect the responsibility. My mouth opened then shut again. I did not trust my voice. Vivian shifted her weight. The fan hummed. The muffled music from the ballroom throbbed through the wall, steady and irrelevant. One condition, Vivian said. My stomach tightened. Of course there was a condition. She looked me straight in the eye. This conversation stays between us. I stared at her. All of it. Yes, Vivian replied. The program exists. That is public. The reasons we are standing in this room are not. I nodded. Of course. Vivian's eyes narrowed slightly, as if she wanted more than agreement. I have a reputation, she said. The words were plain, but the meaning underneath them was sharp. People feared her. People respected her. People watched for weakness. Sympathy could be used against her, and she knew it. I swallowed. I won't say anything. Vivian's expression shifted just a fraction into something like acceptance. And at work she added, it remains Ms. Hart. A strange laugh tried to come out of me, half relief, half disbelief. I swallowed it down. Yes, Ms. Hart. For a moment, her mouth curved slightly. It was not a full smile. It was a brief softening, gone almost as soon as it appeared. My phone vibrated again. I could not ignore it anymore. I pulled it out and saw a new message from Mrs. Ramirez. She is shaking. She keeps asking for you. My chest clenched. I shoved the phone back into my pocket. Vivian moved toward the door. Her hand went to the lock. She hesitated, fingers resting on it, then looked back at me. Ethan, she said, and my name sounded steadier in her mouth now, like she had decided it belonged in her world of outcomes. Do not waste time proving yourself to me. I blinked. What? You already did, Vivian said. The sentence landed in my ribs and stayed there. She turned the lock. The click was softer this time, like the room was exhaling. Vivian opened the door a crack and listened. The hallway was quiet. No footsteps, no voices nearby. She pulled it open and stepped out first, scanning left and right, with the same awareness she brought to boardrooms. Then she nodded for me to follow. The cooler air hit my face. The fluorescent hallway light felt harsh after the warm dimness of the ballroom. The carpet pattern seemed too busy, too eager to announce itself. Vivian walked a few steps with me, then stopped at the corner where the corridor split. You will go that way, she said, indicating the service exit that led toward the garage. Fewer people. I nodded, swallowing hard. Thank you. Her eyes sharpened. You said you would not. I stopped myself. I nodded instead. Understood. Vivian's gaze held mine a beat longer. Go. I turned and moved fast, not running, but close. My shoes made soft sounds on the carpet. The farther I got from the ballroom, the clearer my thoughts became narrowed down to one thing. Get home. At the service door, I pushed through into a stairwell that smelled like concrete and cold air. The sound of the party vanished completely. My phone buzzed again, and I gripped the railing harder, taking the stairs two at a time. In the garage, my breath fogged in front of me. I unlocked my car with shaking fingers, slid into the seat, and started the engine. The heater blew cold at first. The dashboard lights glowed soft red. I drove out into the night, city lights smearing across the windshield. The streets downtown were busy with people leaving restaurants, taxis edging into lanes, brake lights flaring like warnings. At a red light, I pulled my phone out and called Mrs. Ramirez. It rang twice. She answered on the third ring, voice low. Ethan. I'm on my way, I said. My voice broke on the last word. Put her on speaker. Tell her I'm coming. I already did, Mrs. Ramirez said. She hears your voice in her head. She needs the real one. A small sound came through the phone. Not words. A stifled sob. Lily, I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. Hey, baby, it's me. Another small sound like she was trying to breathe through something heavy. Daddy, Lily whispered. I'm coming home, I said. I'm driving right now. I'm coming. Are you sure, she asked, and the question was so small it hurt. I'm sure, I said. I always come back. The line went quiet except for her breathing. Mrs. Ramirez murmured something in Spanish, soft and soothing. I could hear fabric rustle as if she was smoothing Lily's hair. Lily's voice came again, thin with sleep and fear. Don't get lost. I won't, I said. Look at Peanut. Hold Peanut tight. I'm almost there. Okay, she whispered. I hung up when I reached my exit. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. My vision stung. I blinked hard and kept driving. By the time I pulled onto my street, the wind had picked up again, pushing scraps of snow along the curb. My building rose ahead, familiar and worn, the lobby lights glowing behind glass like a small promise. I parked too close to the curb and did not care. I locked the car and walked fast, my shoes crunching on salt and ice. My breath came in short bursts. Inside the lobby, it smelled like laundry and old heat. The elevator doors took too long to open. When they did, I stepped in and hit my floor number twice, as if repetition could speed it up. The elevator climbed, humming. My phone was quiet now, but my body still felt the echo of every buzz. When the doors opened, I moved down the hallway toward my apartment keys already in my hand. The lock on my door resisted like it always did, and then gave way with a familiar click. Warm air met me first, thick with the smell of buttered popcorn and the faint sweetness of Lily's shampoo. The television was on low in the living room. A dog show paused mid-trot. Mrs. Ramirez stood near the couch with her coat open as if she had been ready to move at any second. She did not scold me. She did not greet me like it was a normal night. She just looked at my face and her eyes softened. She finally stopped shaking, she whispered. My throat tightened. Is she awake? Mrs. Ramirez shook her head once slow. She is half asleep, but she is listening for you, like a little cat. I set my keys down too carefully on the small table by the door. My hands did not feel like mine. My suit jacket felt too stiff for this room. Everything about me looked wrong in my own home. Mrs. Ramirez stepped closer and lowered her voice even more. She had a dream. I nodded, already bracing. She said you disappeared, Mrs. Ramirez continued, like her mother. The words hit hard and clean. For a second I could not breathe. It felt like the air had been knocked out of the apartment. I looked toward the hallway toward Lily's door. The crack of light underneath it was thin and steady. The nightlight she insisted on, even though she told her classmates it was for babies. I was gone for 2 hours, I said, and the sentence came out like a confession. Mrs. Ramirez studied me. Her gaze was kind, but it did not let me hide. Time is different for children, she said softly. Night makes it worse. I swallowed. Thank you for staying with her. She waved a hand as if it was nothing. Her coat sleeve brushed the side of the couch, and a kernel of popcorn rolled onto the floor. She bent and picked it up without thinking, like she was used to cleaning up small pieces of other people's lives. She kept asking the same thing Mrs. Ramirez said. I already knew the question. She asked if you were gone for good, Mrs. Ramirez finished. My chest tightened until it hurt. Mrs. Ramirez touched my arm. It was brief, a grounding tap. Go. She needs your face, not your voice on the phone. I nodded, unable to speak. I moved down the hall steps, quiet on the worn carpet. The apartment felt smaller with every foot closer to Lily's room, like the walls leaned inward to listen. Her door was mostly closed. I pushed it open with 2 fingers. The room was dim lit by a small nightlight shaped like a star. Lily's bed was a soft lump under the blanket. Peanut lay under her chin, pressed close as if he could keep her steady. Her hair spilled across the pillow, slightly damp from her bath. I stood in the doorway for a beat, watching her breathe. Her eyelashes were dark against her cheeks. In sleep, she looked younger, like the 5-year-old who used to crawl into my lap and fall asleep while I read emails with one hand. I stepped inside and pulled the door until it was almost shut, leaving the crack she liked. A thin strip of hallway light cut across the floor. The bed creaked slightly as I sat on the edge. Lily stirred, her brow furrowed. Her hand moved across the sheet as if searching for something. I leaned forward. Hey, I whispered. Her eyes fluttered open. For a second they were unfocused, filled with sleep and leftover fear. Then they landed on me. Daddy, she said, and her voice was thick. You came back. Something in my chest loosened so suddenly it felt like pain. I came back, I said. I kept my voice soft and steady, like it could build a wall between her and the dream. I always come back. Lily blinked hard, once then reached for me. Her fingers were cold. They wrapped around my wrist tight. Promise, she whispered. I slid my hand into hers, palm to palm. Not a pinky this time. Full contact. A promise she could feel. I promise, I said. Her grip tightened, then eased. She stared at my face like she was trying to memorize it in case the dream returned. Mrs. Ramirez said you were at a party, she murmured. I was, I said. Did you have fun? The question was so blunt it almost made me laugh. Almost. It was loud, I said, and the food was tiny. Lily's mouth twitched. A small smile tried to form, cautious. Did you eat enough? No, I admitted. She nodded as if that made sense. Grown-up parties are weird. They are, I said. Her eyes drifted toward the crack of hallway light, then back to me. When you were gone, I thought... She stopped. Her mouth pressed together like the rest of the sentence tasted bad. I waited. I thought you would disappear, she said finally, like Mom. The sentence landed quietly, but it carried weight. The room felt colder for a second. I leaned closer. Hey, I said, and my voice caught at the edge. I cleared my throat. You did not do anything wrong. You did not make me go away. Lily stared at me. I know. I shook my head gently. Sometimes you know things in your head, and your heart still gets scared. Her eyes filled a little. She blinked fast. Your heart got scared, I said. Mine did too. Lily's grip on my hand tightened again, like she needed the second half of that sentence. I kept my voice even. I am here. She swallowed. Are you going to leave again? I could have said no. I could have promised the impossible. Instead, I held her hand and chose the truest thing I could give her. I am going to be home more, I said. Lily's eyes narrowed slightly. She was listening for tricks. How, she asked? You always say work. I hesitated. The card Vivian had given me was in my jacket pocket. I could feel its sharp edge when I moved. I got offered a different arrangement, I said carefully. It means I can do my work from home a lot of the time. Lily stared at me like she had to translate it into kid language. You mean you will be here when I get off the bus, she said. Yes, I said. Most days. Her eyebrows lifted, like really, I said. Lily's mouth opened then shut. She looked down at Peanut as if Peanut could confirm it. Then she looked back at me, eyes wide, suddenly more awake. But you still have to work, she said, suspicious. I do, I admitted. I will still have meetings. I will still have deadlines. But I can do a lot of it here, in the other room. Lily's gaze slid toward the second bedroom, the one filled with boxes and old coats and things I kept meaning to sort. Then she looked back. "So you can pick me up," she said. "Yes. And you can come to the science thing," she said, and the words tumbled out faster now. "And you can come when Ms. Klein says parents are invited. And you can be there when I get sick." My throat tightened. "Yes," I said again. "I can be there." Lily stared at me like she was trying to decide if this was a real thing or another grown-up sentence that sounded good and vanished later. Then she asked the most Lily question possible. "Can we have pancakes?" she said in the morning. I felt a laugh slip out quiet and surprised. "It is late." "Pancakes and mambi pintates are not about time," she said, very serious. I shook my head. "Okay, pancakes." Her eyes softened. "Dinosaur ones." "Dinosaur ones," I agreed. "With chocolate chips," she added. "With chocolate chips," I said. Lily sighed a long breath that sounded like she had been holding it all night. Her shoulders sank into the pillow. Her grip on my hand loosened. "Okay," she whispered. I stayed there, fingers still laced with hers, until her eyelids drooped again. She fought it for a second, like she did not want to let go of being awake while I was sitting here. Then sleep pulled her down. Her breathing deepened. Peanut shifted slightly as she relaxed. The room held steady, small, and warm. I eased my hand out slowly, careful not to break the spell. Lily made a tiny sound in her throat, then settled. I sat there a moment longer, watching her chest rise and fall. When I stood, my suit jacket creaked. The sound felt loud in the quiet room. I paused, waiting to see if she woke. She did not. I left the door cracked the way she liked and walked back down the hall. My body felt heavy now, the adrenaline draining out and leaving exhaustion in its place. Mrs. Ramirez was still in the living room, folding her scarf neatly, even though no one would see it. "She asleep," I whispered. "She is," Mrs. Ramirez replied. "For now." I nodded. She looked at me and her gaze sharpened. "You talked to her?" "Yes." Mrs. Ramirez held my eyes. "She believes you." I swallowed. "I hope so." Mrs. Ramirez stepped toward the door, picking up her tote bag. "Make the pancakes," she said, like an instruction and a blessing at the same time. "I will," I said. At the threshold, she paused. Her eyes flicked to my suit, my tie, the way my shoulders still held tension like a habit. "You look like you were about to be punished," she said quietly. The word surprised the laugh out of me, but it died fast. I thought I was. Mrs. Ramirez's expression softened again, and now I hesitated. Vivian's card pressed against the inside of my pocket like proof. "Now I'm just tired," I said. Mrs. Ramirez nodded, as if that was honest enough. "Sleep," she said, "if you can." She slipped out into the hallway. The apartment door stuck, then closed. The latch caught with a small click. The quiet that followed felt different, not empty, just still. I took off my coat, then my suit jacket, and hung them on the back of a chair. My tie felt like a rope around my throat. I loosened it, pulled it free, and let it fall onto the table. My phone sat in my pocket, finally silent. I pulled it out and set it face down on the counter like it might start buzzing again if I looked at it too closely. Then I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out Vivian's card. The matty paper caught the kitchen light. FlexOps Pilot, Remote Operations. I set it on the table. I stared at it for a long beat, the way you stare at something you do not want to trust. I heard Lily's voice in my head, small and fierce. "Don't get lost." I rubbed my palms over my face, then leaned on the counter the way I had leaned on the sink in the hotel bathroom. The same need for something solid under my hands. From the cabinet, I pulled out the dinosaur pancake mold and set it beside the card. It looked ridiculous next to corporate print, like two worlds that had never belonged on the same surface. I stood there in the quiet kitchen staring at both, listening to the old building settle, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator, feeling my own breathing slow. In the hallway, Lily's door stayed cracked. A thin line of light held steady on the floor. I slept in my clothes on top of the blanket. Not deep sleep, the kind where you keep one ear open for small feet and a soft voice. When morning finally slid into the kitchen through the blinds, I woke with my neck stiff and my mouth dry. The dinosaur pancake mold sat on the counter where I had left it, ridiculous and honest. Vivian's card lay beside it, neat as a contract. I made coffee first. The smell filled the apartment, bitter and familiar. Then I mixed batter in a bowl that still had a chip on the rim from the day Lily had tried to help, and dropped it. I warmed the pan. I greased the mold. I did everything slowly, like moving carefully could keep the night from happening again. Lily padded into the kitchen in socks that did not match. She stopped in the doorway and looked at me like she was checking if I was real. "You stayed," she said. "I stayed," I answered. Her shoulders lowered a fraction. She climbed onto her chair and watched the pan. "You said pancakes," she reminded me. I remember I said, and poured batter into the mold. It sizzled. The sound felt like a small celebration. Lily leaned forward, chin on her fists. With chocolate chips. Already in there, I said. She nodded once satisfied, then glanced at the card on the counter. What's that? I kept my eyes on the pan. Work paper. Lily's eyes narrowed. Work is always paper. I flipped the first dinosaur. It landed clean, tail intact. I felt a silly rush of pride again. This paper means I can work from home more, I said. Lily stared at the card, then at me. Like you will be here. Like I will be here, I said. She did not smile right away. She took that information and held it carefully like a fragile ornament. Then she looked at the pancake and decided that was a safer thing to focus on. I want the green plate, she said. The green plate is for special mornings, I replied. She lifted her eyebrows. This is special. I slid the pancake onto the green plate. Lily grinned quick and bright, and the knot in my chest loosened again. After breakfast, she dressed for school without a fight. She brushed her hair and did not complain when I tightened the braid. She hugged me at the door hard enough to make my ribs ache. Don't get lost, she whispered. I won't, I said into her hair. I drove her to school and watched her disappear through the doors. I waited a beat, then pulled my phone out and scrolled until I found Vivian's number. My thumb hovered. This stayed between us, she had said, but the program did not. The paperwork did not. The offer was real, and if I did not respond, it would turn into another thing that almost happened. I texted instead of calling. Thank you, I am in. A minute passed, 2. Then her reply came. Meet HR today, send availability. That was it. No punctuation flourish, no warmth. The sentence carried the same weight as her hand on the restroom lock. This was happening. At work, I kept my head down. I completed the sandstone revision and sent it early. I answered emails in tight, clean paragraphs. I let myself look busy because busy was safer than hopeful. When I walked past Bridge later that afternoon, I saw Vivian through the glass. She sat alone at the table, tablet open, one hand still. The scuffed leather keychain looped around her wrist, tapping softly against the tabletop as she scrolled. Her face stayed calm, but her eyes were sharp. She looked up when I passed. Our gaze met for a second. I nodded, small, respectful. Vivian nodded back smaller. At 3:30, I sat across from a human resources specialist in a conference room that smelled like dry erase marker and coffee. She smiled too much and spoke in bright, friendly phrases that made my stomach tighten. We are excited to have you as part of the FlexOps pilot, she said. I kept my hands folded on the table. I am excited too. She slid papers toward me. Remote work agreement, security protocols, equipment inventory. The language was careful and legal, but underneath it I could see my life shifting. You will be based from home 3 days a week, she said, tapping the page. Core coverage from 10 to 3. Flexible outside that window as long as client needs are met. Core coverage. The words felt like a bridge. Not perfect, but something solid enough to stand on. I signed where she pointed. The pen felt heavy. My name looked strange on a document that might change everything. Your compensation adjustment is here, she added, pointing to a line item. Modest, just as Vivian had said. It was not the money that made my throat tighten. It was the fact that someone had written down in black and white that my time had value. When I left the room, Marla caught me near the elevators. Where were you? She asked, eyes flicking to the folder in my hand. HR, I said. Monday is the sad abstinidal. Marla's face shifted. Are you okay? I'm okay, I said again, but this time it was not a lie. It was not the full truth either. I could not say more. Marla studied me. Vivian. I kept my expression neutral. Work things. Marla leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. You got transferred. I held her gaze. Something like that. She let out a breath, then nodded slow. Good. You needed something. I did not correct her. I could not. That weekend I opened the second bedroom door and stared at the mess like it was a stranger. Boxes stacked to the ceiling. A treadmill I never used. Bags of clothes Lily had outgrown, but I could not bring myself to throw away. A dusty lamp. A pile of old client binders I had brought home during a crisis and never returned. Lily stood beside me, peanut tucked under her arm. She peered in with the serious expression she used when she was deciding if something was safe. This is where you will work, she said. It's the plan, I replied. Lily wrinkled her nose. It smells like old. It does, I admitted. She pointed at a box. What is that? Stuff, I said. Lily's eyes narrowed. Stuff is not a real answer. I laughed quietly. You're right. We spent the afternoon sorting. Lily insisted on keeping every drawing she had ever made, including a picture of a purple cat riding a bicycle. I tried to argue. Lily shut that down with a look. That one is history, she said. I threw out broken hangers and expired coupons. I carried boxes to the trash chute. I found a photo in the back of a drawer, tucked between old mail. Lily as a toddler, grinning frosting on her cheeks. Me, behind her younger eyes, less tired. I stared at it too long. Lily noticed. "You look different," she said. "So do you," I answered. She climbed onto the windowsill and watched snow drift down in slow flakes. "Will you still wear a suit?" she asked. "Not at home," I said. Good Lily replied. "Suits are for pretending." I did not correct her. I just kept clearing space. By Monday, the room looked like a room again. A small desk by the window, a chair that did not squeak, a lamp with a warm bulb. The company shipped a monitor and a headset in a box that made Lily gasp like it was a present. "This is fancy," she said, running her hand over the cardboard. "It's work," I told her. She grinned. "Work can be fancy." That evening, Lily taped 3 of her drawings to the wall above my desk without asking. She added a string of small fairy lights she found in a box labeled Christmas and insisted it was necessary. "It needs personality," she declared. Then she placed a tiny cactus on the corner of the desk pot painted blue. "It is hard to kill," she said solemn, "even for you." I laughed, startled by how much that sentence sounded like hope. The pilot launched with 5 people. I knew 2 of them well. The other 3 were names I recognized from email threads and late-night escalations. On the first morning, I sat at my desk in my apartment headset on the fairy lights, still unlit, because it was daylight, the cactus sitting like a small sentry. I clicked into the call early. One by one, faces appeared in little rectangles. A man in a hoodie, a woman with a baby monitor visible behind her, another person in a spare room with a pile of laundry in the corner, eyes tired trying to look professional anyway. "Morning," I said. A chorus of mornings came back uneven, a little awkward. I took a breath and kept my voice calm. "This is not a test. We are not trying to prove that we can work like robots. We are trying to prove we can work like adults." A couple of people smiled slightly. One person exhaled like they had been holding it. I explained the core window. I explained coverage. I explained that a status message was not a confession. That you could say school pickup and return at 4 without writing a paragraph of apology. That we would rotate escalation duty so no one was always on call. That we would measure output, not chair time. In the background, someone's toddler squealed. The woman reached off screen and shushed gently. "No worries," I said, without making it a joke. "We can hear life. It's fine." Her shoulders dropped. "Thank you," she murmured. We built rhythm over days. A morning check-in that was short. A midday handoff note that was clear. A rule that client coverage came first, but no one had to pretend they never had a doctor appointment. We created templates that made it easy to communicate without oversharing. We stopped treating flexibility like a favor and started treating it like design. The first week I made mistakes. I overcorrected. I answered messages too fast, like speed could prevent failure. I stayed up late editing protocols that did not need editing. On Friday night, Lily found me at my desk with my shoulders tight. "Daddy," she said, standing in the doorway, pajamas rumpled. "Your face is doing the thing." "What thing?" I asked, forcing a smile. "The worried thing," she said, "like you were at the party." I leaned back in my chair. The fairy lights glowed softly now, reflecting in the window. The city outside was dark and wet streetlights shining on the pavement. "I'm okay," I said. Lily walked over and placed Peanut on my keyboard. "No more typing," she announced. "Peanut is Union," I said, and Lily's grin flickered. I picked her up and carried her to the couch, her small body warm against mine. We watched a show about animals until her breathing slowed. When I carried her to bed, she did not ask if I was coming back. She just mumbled goodnight and rolled toward Peanut. That change was small, but it sat in my chest like a pebble you keep turning over. Weeks passed. My phone still buzzed. It buzzed with client messages and calendar reminders and school notes. But the buzz stopped feeling like a siren. It became information again. I was there when Lily got off the bus, standing at the door, in sweatpants holding the mail. She waved from the steps and ran up, cheeks flushed from cold, talking at full speed about a science worksheet and a boy who wore his shoes on the wrong feet. Sometimes I still had to take calls during dinner. Sometimes deadlines still pressed in. But the apartment no longer felt like a place I visited between crises. It felt like where we lived. In the office on the days I came in, people looked at me differently. Not warmer exactly, more curious, like they were trying to figure out what had changed. Vivian did not comment in public. She kept her tone sharp, her expectations clear. But in meetings when I presented pilot metrics, her gaze held steady on the numbers and then briefly on me. Once after a call, she passed me in the hallway and said quietly, "Better." It was not praise, it was acknowledgement. It meant she had noticed the shift in my reliability chart. It meant she had noticed the shift in my face. By the end of the second month, Lily's nightmares came less often. When she did wake, she reached for me and found me in the next room, instead of across town. She still asked for promises sometimes, but the questions came softer, less like panic and more like habit. One afternoon, an alert popped onto my screen while I was finishing a client summary, a calendar invite. Vivian Hart, performance review. I stared at it for a moment, then clicked accept. The week leading up to the review felt quiet on the surface and loud in my head. My work stayed steady. The pilot metrics kept trending the right direction. Client response times improved. Internal handoffs got cleaner. People stopped apologizing for having to pick up a kid or take a parent to a doctor. They just posted the note, covered each other, and moved on. Still, the word review sat in my chest like a stone. On the morning of the meeting, I came into the office early, not because I had to, because my body still thought early meant safer. I rode the elevator up with a man from sales who smelled like cologne and coffee. He nodded at me once and went back to his phone. The hallway on our floor was bright and too cold. Glass walls, carpet that swallowed footsteps. I walked past Bridge and stopped outside the door. Through the glass, Vivian sat at the table tablet angled toward her, a stylus resting between her fingers, like a pen and a weapon at the same time. She looked up exactly when I reached for the handle, like she had known the timing without looking at the clock. "Come in," she said. I stepped inside and shut the door. The click sounded louder in the quiet. Vivian did not offer small talk. She did not ask how my morning was. She slid her tablet toward the center of the table so I could see it. The dashboard showed the pilot program in clean blocks of color: output, response time, satisfaction, attendance. The attendance chart was the one that hit me first. The red patches that used to cluster around my name were gone. There were still small dips because life did not disappear, but the pattern was different, controlled, covered. Vivian tapped the screen once. "These are the results." I nodded. The team did the work. Vivian's eyes stayed on mine. "Leadership is work." I swallowed. "Thank you." Her gaze sharpened slightly, but she let it pass this time. Maybe because she was looking at numbers that made it hard to argue with gratitude. "The board reviewed the pilot," she said. "They were impressed." My stomach tightened, then loosened. "Okay." Vivian leaned back a fraction. "Upper management wants to expand it." I heard my own breath. Quiet, measured, like the room demanded it. "They asked for a plan," Vivian continued. "They asked why it worked." I kept my voice calm. "Because the expectations are clear. Because the coverage is designed. People are not guessing what will get them punished." Vivian nodded once. "Yes." She paused, then added, "They also asked who built it." My throat went dry. "You did." Vivian's mouth pressed into a line. "I sponsored it. You built it." The sentence landed heavier than praise. It sounded like a responsibility being handed over with both hands. I nodded. "I understand." Vivian's eyes flicked down to her tablet, then back up. "Your performance has been exceptional." I forced myself not to flinch. The old part of me waited for the other half, the but. Vivian did not give it. I let my shoulders drop a little. "I'm glad it's working." Vivian held my gaze for a beat. Then so quietly it almost sounded accidental, she asked, "How is your daughter?" It was not phrased like a data point. It was not phrased like a checklist. It was a plain question placed carefully between us. I felt my face soften before I could stop it. "She's better," I said. "She joined the science club, and she hasn't had a nightmare in over a month." Vivian's eyes stayed steady. The muscles in her jaw loosened slightly. "Good," she said. That single word carried more weight than a paragraph. I stood, but Vivian raised a hand, not stopping me, just holding the moment. "The company is hosting a family day," she said. "Grant Park, next month." I waited. "It would be good to have representation from FlexOps," Vivian added. The sentence sounded professional. The subtext sat underneath it, quiet and clear. She was extending a line across the distance she usually kept. "We'll be there," I said. Vivian nodded once, and the meeting ended the way her meetings always ended. Clean, final, no wasted motion. As I walked back to my desk, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I stopped automatically, body tightening out of habit. Then I pulled it out and looked. A message from Ms. Klein. "Lily did great in group work today." She smiled a lot. I exhaled. The buzz was just information. It did not feel like a siren anymore. On the morning of the family day, the city looked like it had finally decided to be kind. Sunlight hit the lake and turned it into scattered silver. The air still carried a hint of cold, but it was the kind that woke you up instead of cutting you down. Lily bounced in the back seat as we drove, ponytail swinging. Peanut sat in her lap, buckled in by her insistence. "Do you think there will be games?" she asked. There are always games, I said. Do you think there will be face paint? She pressed eyes wide. Probably, I answered. Lily looked out the window at the buildings sliding by. Do you think your boss will be there? Ms. Hart, I said automatically. Lily smirked. You said her name is Vivian. I felt heat rise in my neck. At work, it's Ms. Hart. Lily's smile went sly. This is not work. I did not answer. I parked near the edge of the park and took her hand as we walked toward the crowd. Grant Park was full of people who looked like they belonged to a company and a weekend at the same time. Folding tables, a banner with the lakefront logo, coolers filled with drinks, the smell of grilled food drifting on the wind, kids running with juice boxes, their laughter sharp and bright. Lily stayed close to my side at first. Her fingers curled around mine, small and firm. Her eyes scanned the crowd, taking in strangers' voices' movement. Her shoulders stayed lifted, ready to retreat. It's okay, I said quietly. She nodded without looking at me. Then she saw it. A face painting station near a line of balloons. A little boy walked away with a spider on his cheek, grinning like he had been given superpowers. Lily's grip tightened. Can I? She asked, and the word came out like a plea. Please. Of course, I said. Her whole body shifted. She pulled me forward with sudden confidence, the way kids do when they want something simple and wonderful. We joined the line. Lily rocked on her heels, watching the paintbrush move across faces. Do you want a dinosaur? I asked. Yes, she said immediately, but not a baby dinosaur, a real one. Like a T-Rex, I offered. Lily nodded, with teeth. As we waited, I felt a presence beside us, not close enough to touch, close enough to change the air. I turned. Vivian stood there in jeans and a blue blouse, sleeves rolled up slightly. No blazer, no tablet, no glass walls. Her hair was still pulled back, but looser, as if she had allowed a single strand to live. For a second, my brain struggled to place her in sunlight. Ms. Hart, I said, then caught myself. Vivian. Her eyes flicked to Lily, then back to me. Ethan, she said. Not cold, not warm, just precise. Lily stared at her, with open curiosity, the way she looked at people when she was deciding if they were safe. Vivian angled her body, slightly lowering herself to Lily's level, without crouching. A small gesture, but deliberate. And you are, Vivian said. Lily replied. Vivian nodded once. Nice to meet you, Lily. Lily kept staring. Then she said, blunt as only a kid could be, You're pretty. My face went hot. Lily. Vivian's mouth moved almost into a smile. Almost. Thank you, she said, and the words sounded slightly unfamiliar on her tongue. Lily kept going, fearless. Daddy said you were scary. I made a sound that was half laugh and half choke. I did not say that. Lily looked up at me. Deep at being eyebrows raised. You did. Vivian's eyes shifted to mine. The look was calm. It also carried a question. I tried to recover. I said she's a strong leader. Lily squinted. That's the same thing. Vivian's mouth curved quick and small, then disappeared. Your father, she said to Lily, does good work. Lily considered that. He makes dinosaur pancakes. Vivian's gaze stayed steady. That is also important, she said. Lily nodded like she had won an argument. The face painter called Lily's name. Lily stepped forward, then hesitated for half a second. Her eyes flicked to me, a silent check. I'm right here, I said. She sat in the chair and held still with fierce determination as the paintbrush touched her cheek. Green scales, white teeth, a dark eye. Lily's hands gripped the armrests as if bravery required muscle. Vivian watched, expression unreadable, but her attention did not drift. She looked like a person who rarely allowed herself to simply stand and observe something innocent. When Lily hopped down, she ran to me and tilted her face up. Look, she demanded. It's perfect, I said, and I meant it. Lily beamed, then looked at Vivian again. See, she said, not scary. Vivian's eyes held mine for a second. The subtext sat there quiet and sharp. She had heard the fear. She had seen the child. She had chosen what to do with it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I did not flinch. I pulled it out and saw a photo Lily had just sent through Mrs. Ramirez's old group chat that she still used. Lily's dinosaur face, blurry and triumphant, captioned in all caps. Dad, look. I laughed softly. Lily grabbed my hand again and tugged me toward the games. Vivian stepped back, giving us space but not leaving. As we walked, the wind off the lake lifted Lily's ponytail. Sunlight flashed on the grass. The noise of the park rose and fell like waves. At the edge of the crowd, I glanced back once. Vivian stood with her hands in her pockets, watching Lily run. The scuffed leather keychain was looped around her wrist, catching the light like a small worn promise she carried without explaining. I turned forward and followed my daughter into the afternoon, her laughter bright enough to drown out every old buzz. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.